Right. Oh, man. Anyway, did you know Brandon at OBU?
Yeah. So I think he was a professor for my junior and senior year there.
Yeah, he was pretty good. I enjoyed him.
Yeah.
I liked, I don't know. That was a couple of years ago now. But it was he's a funny guy. But I don't want to call Gregory of Nazianzus G-Naz, if I'm being honest.
Unfortunately, he'll always be G-Naz to me. G-Naz and the Cap Daddies.
Oh, man, that's funny. That's funny. How's your time at Southeastern been?
I've really enjoyed it. It was definitely a quick transition because I only made the decision to come to Southeastern 2 weeks before I moved in. And so there was a whole lot of unexpectedness, but there has been a lot of just really sweet stuff. And
Why was it 2 weeks beforehand?
because of my time overseas, just stuff changed when I wasn't expecting it to change, and I ended up having to make a call pretty quick for what comes next, and then here I was.
Where were you overseas at?
I was in South Asia.
And they were like, do you want to go to seminary or not? If you want, you can go to Southeastern.
It was, I ended up coming home, back to the U.S. earlier than I expected to, just because of some weird things going on, some difficult situations. And so once I was back in the U.S., I was like, oh, I need to figure out something to do with my life for the next little while. And so I was already enrolled in online classes when I was over in South Asia, and I figured the most natural and easy transition would just be to move 24 hours away.
To the school you were already enrolled at?
Moved to the school I was already enrolled at for in-person classes.
Sick.
Yeah.
Sick. What kind of jobs were you doing in South Asia?
So I was helping to do trainings with different groups of believers and to really just reinforce kind of the good news about
Good news about what?
Are
you okay?
Yeah, so can we not post this?
Oh, frick, are you not supposed to talk about South Asia?
I mean, yeah, probably not.
Yeah, we're live streaming right now.
I know, but just...
No. The whole point is that we have it. Okay.
I know, that's why I'm saying just like...
Oh, I should have asked what should be off topic. Have
Yeah.
you said anything? That
No.
Okay, well, let's just cut it here then.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just cut it here and leave it. I'll ask.
Dude, I love Southeastern.
Yeah, Southeastern rocks. What kind of coffee are you drinking?
Uh,
Also taking your headphone off like this is not... It doesn't do anything.
I know. No.
It's like... Okay.
So this is one of my many bags of Starbucks coffee.
Yeah.
One of the perks of being a barista there. One of the few perks that will be missed is getting free coffee.
Of living in Asia.
Of being a barista at Starbucks.
Oh, barista start with that, right? That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I believe this is a Guatemala Antigua medium roast.
Wow.
Quite lovely.
I don't like Starbucks very much.
I like any coffee I can get.
But like, how do you like the difference between Starbucks and like black and white?
Because Starbucks is free for me, it
right.
has developed a very, very precious place in my heart. But
that's fair.
A week from now, when I am no longer employed by Starbucks,
hey, what are you gonna do next?
I'm gonna be a behavioral therapist working with children with autism.
Wow.
Yeah,
and
it's exciting.
Was that like a intention? Like, was that like a hopeful move, or was that like another like, oh, this is the door that opens, so I guess I'll just...
It's very much just a door that got opened, but it's also cool because it's not something that's really ever been on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was looking through my camera roll a few days ago, and I saw an old photograph from when I was a freshman in college, so would have been 2020 or 2021, where I was taking photographs of different job postings on like billboard at my school, and one of the photos I took a picture of was a posting for the exact type of position that I'm taking now. I'm going to be a registered behavioral technician.
Wow.
And
RPT.
RBT.
RBT. Yeah, an RBT. Yeah. Behavioral.
Yeah. Behavioral. But
Registered behavioral.
It was just cool because I was like, I totally forgot that this was like a possibility I was looking into 5 years ago. And then I went all sorts of other directions, working at my church for a while, working at my school for a while, and then working at Starbucks. And then all of a sudden here I am back to getting to do that for a while.
That's sick. It sounds like you had a big journey. What kind of jobs did you have at church?
For a year, I was the intern for my church's children's ministry.
Love that.
And so it was a lot of kind of the behind the scenes work, but also kind of what I ended up being was the catch-all of like whenever something falls through, I get to just kind of like plug the different cracks.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy doing stuff like that. So like anytime on a Sunday morning we would have someone have to call out and not be able to teach, I would get to teach whatever grade level that was.
Right.
So it was always fun going into a Sunday morning because it was a pretty big church. And so we had the classes divided like each grade level as a different class. And so because of that, because of the amount of teachers that we would have had, we could usually expect one of our teachers to not be available on any given Sunday. And so that meant I got to lesson plan and prep for lessons that would work from anywhere from 3-year-olds up to 6th graders.
That's right.
And I wish there was a little bit more difference in how the lessons would have needed to go. But sometimes the ones I prepped anticipating working the best with younger kids ended up being the ones that the 5th and 6th graders absolutely adored. So.
I just taught a D-Now back in April at Smyrna, Georgia, where I was the interim I was the interim youth pastor a couple years ago. Their pastor is one of my mentors. And I used an example that I elongated a sermon that started as a kids elementary before school Christian club. I forget what it's called. First Priority. I think there's a kid called there's some kids club called First Priority that I did at an elementary school here in Raleigh for a friend who organizes it for that school. And I gave like a 10-minute version of it. And then the analogy was that Jesus is the image of the invisible God. So if we want to look at the image of God, or if we want to know what God looks like, we have to look at his image, as opposed to looking at the earth, which belongs to God, and thinking that just because it belongs to God, that it also looks like God. We can't go to the clouds or the mountains or anything like that. And so the example I used was like, I showed a picture of my granddad, and I was like, my granddad looks like this is his image. You know what I'm saying? So you have to like look at him. If you look at his image, then you know what it's like. His ears, his eyes. This is what he looks like. We look at him, and then I have my granddad's fishing pole back there in my kitchen. Actually, it was leaning up right here for a while, but and I have that belongs to my granddad. And so I said to the kids, I was like, this is my granddad's fishing pole. It belonged to my granddad, but how weird would it be if I said this is what my granddad looked like? And they'd be like, you can't say that's a fishing pole. And I tapped it on the ground. I'd be like, this is what my granddad sounds like. You'd be like, no, that's what a fishing pole sounds like. You're like, you see how insane that is. Well, then in Romans 1, it says they exchanged the glory of God for images of man and beast and all this stuff. And they traded the glory of the creator for the creation. And so I used that example with little kids. And I was like, just because the earth looks like just because the earth belongs to God and God made it, it doesn't mean like, we don't want to look at it and say this is what God looks like. We have to go to his image, which is Jesus. Anyway, I used that for middle schools and high schoolers, and it hit exactly the same. You know what I'm saying? And I think actually that's like a sign of good articulation. Like if it can hit powerful, if it's simple enough to hit with little kids and with older kids. Dr. Black had a great differentiation of the difference between being simple and simplistic. He was like, simplistic is when you're not including everything. You know what I'm saying? You're lacking the gravity of it, but you can be simple and still include the gravity, or the heaviness of the things that you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like let things be hard and heavy because they themselves are hard and heavy, but you don't want to water down the words to where you're losing it. So like simple to where like little kids can understand it will still be heavy, no matter what grade or people you're talking to. So I think that's a good point. I think it's cool that those lessons worked for, worked all the way across. But anyway, I think that's fun.
Even just with having solid illustrations, like my grandpa would always call them object lessons when he would teach, and that always stuck with me. So I always like using the term object lessons because I'm a visual learner, so I always like to see stuff as well as just hearing things.
Yeah.
But one of the ones that I just absolutely adore that kind of is similar to what you were talking about, I have stolen from an old professor of mine when he was teaching one time. He was teaching on, I believe it's Psalm 34:8, but taste and see the Lord is good.
Great psalm.
And then also on Psalm 19, the word of the Lord is sweeter than honey from the honeycomb. Mm-hmm. And so he had one of the students, this was when I was in college, he had one of the students at the chapel come up on stage, and he just gave him a spoon and a spoonful of honey.
Right.
And he asked him, okay, tell me everything you know about honey. Mm-hmm. And I think the student might have been some sort of science major, chemistry major. And so they were listing off all this stuff about honey.
Yeah.
About its chemical makeup and even
bee barf or whatever.
Yeah. And then even the simpler stuff of it's sticky, it's sweet, it's all these things. Yeah. But then my professor then took the spoon from him, just ate the spoonful of honey, and just had this fantastic reaction that still sticks with me. Just but then from that, it was this is the difference between knowing all of these things about God, knowing all of these things about God's word, versus really tasting and seeing in this experiential fashion the goodness of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And that's an illustration that's stuck with me and that I've used in kind of multiple of those age group settings. I think I used it with the kids. I think I've used it with high schoolers, and it's just been...
I think it's one of the best examples for experiencing God, because there's the eating something to taste and see thing is so good, because it's it doesn't matter who knows more about what's going on with food. You experience it the same. You experience it the same way. And someone who eats honey and knows nothing about it has the same experience of eating honey, and it does the same thing to their body as someone that knows everything about it. You know, and that's literally what God is you can know, you accurately know the Jesus that you're going to get to know better. You know what I'm saying? Forever and ever and ever. And you start with experiencing it, and then 20 years later, you're like, it's the same Jesus, but man, I can talk about, I can talk about it so much better and so much differently. And I think that's one of the best examples of taste and see the Lord is good. And I know the big thing a lot of times is to harp on the difference between head and heart knowledge. And I don't think the head and heart knowledge way of talking about it fully grasps what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think it is more like eating it, and it's more like eating something and receiving the benefit. The eating thing is so much better than the difference between head or heart knowledge. Because when you eat something, your knowledge of it is not head or heart knowledge. You know what I'm saying? It's experiential knowledge. You know what I'm saying? You experience God, and you know it's this God, so you just explore this God. And that's what good theology does. Good theology is just exploring the God that we already know. It's sitting with and unpacking the one that we experience in the scriptures, in church, in baptism, this particular God. And you don't have to know him. You actually don't have, this sounds weird to say, but you don't have to know him deeply. You know what I'm saying? To know him accurately. You know what I'm saying? And Dr. McKinnon gives one of the best examples of it. Not best, I guess one of the best examples. He puts it well. If you're watching this, Steve, it's the best. Where, it's literally the marriage analogy is what's in the Bible. And it's you get married to someone. You and I should know a lot about this, given that we're both married. Neither of us are married. But it's you don't have to be married to grasp this concept. You don't have to be married. Yeah. It's you get married, or just you have friends. It's I met you at one point, and I had all of you standing in front of me. You know what I'm saying? All of your experiences and everything you went through in life, all the stories that you have to tell. But I only knew a piece of it, but that doesn't mean I didn't have you. It doesn't mean I didn't know Tim. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so Christ is the same way. You can have all of Christ, and you begin to unpack Now, of course, he knows everything about you, but like you just begin to unpack everything about Christ. And it's like you still have Christ. You still had Christ in your spiritual infancy. You just grew in what it means to know that Jesus. And like he himself has not changed your growth. You know, is that your growth happens. Like the having Christ the entire time. He's not mitigating himself to you, you know, or like changing himself for you. You have all of him as you grow up in him. And I think that's one of the cooler things about our faith. And that's why it's like with like song, like that's why it's like I've grown. One weird aspect that this has helped me grow in is writing worship songs. I love to write worship songs. And I've been on like a roller coaster on needing the songs I write from hating that I write simple lines, and then like really striving for deep theological songs that really, you know, put it into right words. And I have a few that I'm like, this as well, to going back to simple lines and being like, actually, it's what we mean when we sing this that actually makes it heavy or not. You know what I'm saying? And so being less strict about whether or not every song is this beautiful articulation, you know, of deep theological concepts. And it's the song "How Great Is Our God" that I think about it. It's like when you first became a Christian and you sang "How Great Is Our God," if it was like camp, you know, and if it was at camp when you were in high school and you just came to Christ and you're singing "How Great Is Our God," you mean it. You know what I'm saying? Like you mean it. And then like 15 years down the road, you're still singing "How Great Is Our God." But the difference is, man, when I sing "How Great Is Our God," that means so much more to me, you know what I'm saying, than it did when I first came. And so I stopped dogging on the simplicity of lines, you know, in worship songs. And I stopped needing every song. Like I love deep theological songs. There's been some ways I've articulated some things about Christology in some of my songs that I wouldn't be able to do without seminary, you know, without theological. That's good. I love that. But at the same time, it's given me a lot more grace for songs where I'm like, hey, if, you know, when your church preaches, you know, and like you guys explain what you like, when your pastor explains what it means to sing "How Great Is Our God," suddenly "How Great Is Our God," that's a great line. That's a huge line. You know what I'm saying? It's an infinitely deep line, you know? And just because it itself is not like the presentation, you know, of all this. And so, and that's what's going on with that honey analogy. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can learn how to talk about honey deeper and deeper as time goes on, as you study it. But it's still like, you know, the explanation between someone who doesn't know anything about honey and knows everything about honey, you know, their explanations are equally right. You know what I'm saying? Like equally true and authentic. And so, and I think learning how to live in knowledge of God in that way is really more powerful than just separating it between head and heart knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Like head and heart knowledge. I think that's just a important way to think about it. Let's see. What else? What are you thinking about?
Just with I'm thinking of that comment you made about like you and your writing of worship music, and then also thinking about how that can be expanded to like writing of or like preparation and delivery of sermons and just anything where we're trying to take the word of God or take these ideas about God, take the goodness of God, and kind of make it into something that's almost more digestible, but it's not like, yes, eloquence and delivery and these things are good, and there is a place for, even kind of going back to that honey illustration, there is a place for the long scientific words,
the scientific analysis,
the long theological concepts, and even like the history of theology, things like this. But then there's also a place where like someone who understands something really fully will be able to explain it in such a way that a kid would be able to understand it.
Right.
And like using big words, being very eloquent, that is a gift, and that is something special, and something that if that is the way the Lord has wired you, then that's something that you should take full advantage of. But if God gives you the ability to be able to take these difficult concepts and make them into something simple, like how great is our God, that's also just as amazing of a gift from the Lord
Yeah.
to have the ability to do that.
Yeah, 1,000%. I would say just from an academic standpoint, you actually don't understand it until you can put it into words. Like there's this level of like what I found in like PhD studies and stuff is like one area that I fight my brain in is that I feel like it needs to be as hard coming out as it felt going in, when it's the opposite. It should be easier coming out than it does go. Like you should, when you're writing your papers and when you're like, or when you're just explaining it and talking to someone, it should come out where like, and so one of the biggest things in my papers, that, like the difficulties I've had is I feel like my papers need to read at the same level of difficulty that it felt like to me. You know, when I was first reading, because you open up the books for the first time and you're like, this is so hard. You know, so this is so, I'm like skimming, I'm reading this 3 or 4 times and stuff. Then you put it into word, then you finally get it and you put it into words, and it should come out smooth. And that's the sign that you finally grasped it, you know? And so if we're preaching in a way that we're talking about these heavy, deep things, but they're not coming out in a simple, flowing way that people can latch onto, then it's, then we probably don't actually know it, you know, to the level that we want to feel like we do, or we might feel like we know it in our heads, but until you can actually say it, you don't truly know it.
Yeah.
Until then, and I get like that comes with an ability to talk. Not everybody has like the ability to speak is its own talent. You know what I'm saying? So I realize some people will like. I know some people that have been like, you know, studying for years and they have never become someone, you know, that like speaks smoothly even when just ordering at a restaurant, you know what I'm saying? So there's, it's not that, and I have to check myself on that because there's something where I'm like, dude, you are a grown adult. Order your food. But you know, I'm terrible in certain areas too, but I've been doing certain things that I'm not good at for years as well. But the ability to talk in itself is its own talent. But the ability to relay it in that level, especially in preaching, I mean, like where you're assumed that you have the ability, like it's assumed that you have the ability, is half the battle. But whereas like kind of assumable. But you have to be able to put it in a way that kids can grasp it. And so, and that's why I've actually enjoyed being a PhD student and working with, and being a youth pastor and a children's director, because it really reminds me that I'm never above that. You know what I'm saying? I'm never above being able to like articulate this, you know, to a kid, or just go verse by verse through a story with kids that have never heard it before. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like they've never, and even like if you just serve in churches, you realize like you can, if you don't serve in churches, like at least in like a leadership capacity, it can be easy to forget that other grown adults do not know stories in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? And do not know so you have to live in like the bridge between the scholar side of Christianity, like in the seminary side of things, and like the actual practical side. Like you have to forget, like you as a person you're bridging an immense gap, you know, for certain people. For some people, it's like a smaller gap because they already like those conversations. Maybe they grew up in church. Maybe they've taken it upon themselves to read certain books and stuff. But for a lot of people, you're bridging an immense gap where like you have like years and years and years and years and years of immersion on certain topics, you know, and then other people, you know, it's like grown people got saved yesterday, you know what I'm saying? And there's like, for people that grew up in church, we forget that grown adults get saved yesterday. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, you know, and if you don't sit with them, like if you don't disciple, if you don't choose to disciple, if you don't choose to serve in church, if you don't choose to like meet people in that area, or you don't evangelize or anything, like if you don't evangelize or discipleship, you will forget that, and you will not see the immense gap created between, you know, seminary education and new believers, you know, or just normal, you know, like, or just, or new believers. And so that's why I love serving with middle schoolers and high schoolers and little kids and stuff. You always get that, you're just constantly reminded, you know, of that divide. And, so I think it's important. I think, and so with preaching, that's a great point. It's a great point.
And I think that's why it's so important to have such a biblical foundation for your theological ideas, because like I'm just thinking of it, my mom's a math professor, and kind of as you're taking math courses, like each course builds on the next one. And so if you're in Calc 2 but you've never taken Calc 1, then some of the stuff in Calc 2 will just go completely over your head and you'll have no idea what's going on. But then the stuff that's even more dangerous is the stuff that you think you understand but you don't.
Yeah.
And I feel like that can be a really similar thing in theology, where there are some things that it, like, because even new believers have these questions that are these deep theological questions that are difficult to answer. And sometimes we have like studied these answers and have like the history of theology and have all these treatises and things like these written on these very topics. But then when we're trying to explain these things to them, because they don't have that knowledge bank to get them to that point, like sometimes the stuff will just go straight over their head.
Yeah.
But that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that you're actually confusing them.
That's a great point.
And so that's why I'm thinking, like, that's why it's so important that like the first answer has to be, where can I take this person in scripture to help them find the answers to their questions?
That's a great point.
And I just think that that's honestly really hard a lot of the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's such a great point, because our knee-jerk reaction answers they come from proverbially Theology 4.
Yeah.
You know, and we're talking to someone in the 1 credit hour intro to theology. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
the 1 credit hour offered on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Like, like theology course that a school puts out, you know, for funsies. You know what I'm saying? To let people. And so our answers, and that's why, and like we don't even know, because if you're in Theology 4, like you so like, or like if you're to the extent of proverbially Theology 4, you forget how you arrived at that answer making sense. You know what I'm saying? So you're just like, it's this way, and it's like and so you're built up on so many things where it's just like, this makes a ton of sense to me, and you forget how. And then you say that to someone else, you're like, I don't even know. You just say like, oh, because he's fully God and fully man. You know what I'm saying? Jesus is fully God and fully human. You know what I'm saying? And they're just like, well, how did we arrive there? You know what I'm saying? What does that mean? Like, how do you know that's what it means? And you're just like, I do, and everybody around me my entire life has also affirmed that that's what we're working with. And that's why one of the things I've been most grateful for in my theological studies has been the harping on methodology, like theological method, which is what Dr. McKinnon and Dr. Whitfield and everybody, nobody's going to say they don't harp on, on methodology, but the methodology of going like, how do we know, like, how do we read the Bible? Why, what gives it its own 2 legs, and why, when we point at certain verses, why do we read them like they mean why do they mean something specific? You know what I'm saying? Like, why does it mean, why do we say this Old Testament passage is about Jesus and not about, the, ancient Near East, ancient Near Eastern culture, or the Hittites, you know what I'm saying? Or like or some other culture. Why is it about this and not the moon landing? And why is it about this and not aliens? Why is it about Christ and not, anything else? You know what I'm saying? Why do we say when we read these scriptures, why do we say it's about Christ in this way? And for a lot of us, even that we grew up in church, we can't always do that, and even just talking about, like, in my small group with my students at Bethany Baptist, one of the main things we do on Sunday mornings is we've been doing a lot of, like, I haven't put it in terms of theological method, but we've been doing a lot of theological method where I explain what the Bible is doing, and we open up the table of contents, and we're like, big sections, Old Testament, New Testament. And I get them saying, I was like, what does the Old Testament tell us? The Old Testament tells us that a Christ is coming. And then what does the New Testament tell us? The New Testament, that Jesus is that Christ.
Yeah.
We turn to Luke 22. Luke 22:44 has been our main passage. And I'm gonna use this just for the sake of actually, like, pulling stuff up on the screen because I need to practice this. Luke 22:44 ESV, where I don't have the best. I don't have this down to a science yet. I got to get better at this. Nice. But I gotta learn how to do this. That's why we're doing this. Nope, that's not it. Luke 24:44. Good job, Nate. Yeah, there we go. I've only been doing this for a few years. I've only, wow, that is, you cannot see that on the screen on the podcast, but that's okay. That's why we're practicing. This is, if you're watching at home, first off, why? The second, secondly, Tim agreed to do this because I need to practice. I need to practice this to get this actually good. So anyway, Luke 24:44. Then he said to them, "These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled." And then he opened their eyes to the scriptures. And so right here, Jesus is telling them why, or Jesus is rooting his own works in the Old Testament. And so he's saying everything right about the law of Moses, so that's obviously everything Moses wrote, the prophets, that's all the prophets, and then the Psalms. And so that's like all, I mean, that's obviously Psalms, but then also, this is just a fancy way of saying the entire Old Testament. And Jesus is saying, the only thing I did was I did what the Old Testament said. Then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures. So these scriptures are the Old Testament. It's the one, and then he goes on to say, "Thus it is written," meaning the Old Testament, "it is written that the Christ should suffer and on the third day rise from the dead, and that repentance for the forgiveness of sins should be proclaimed in his name to all nations, beginning from Jerusalem. You are witnesses of these things. And behold, I am sending the promise of my Father upon you, but stay in the city until you're clothed with power." So Jesus goes from the Old Testament and says everything that was written was everything he said, the forgiveness of sins, proclamation, rising and dying on the third day, and Pentecost. He's saying all that, like all I'm doing is what the Old Testament was already written, and everything in the New Testament is just showing us what was already said about Jesus in the Old Testament. And so we go over that. We basically hit these verses every Sunday morning with our students to be like, Jesus is saying everything he did was in the Old Testament. That's what gives the Bible its two legs. The New Testament is only trying to show us that Jesus is the guy from the Old Testament. I'm looking at how small these words appear on the screen right here for our viewers at home, and there's no hope. I got to figure out how to make this better, but anyway. And so that methodology of being like the New Testament is only there to show us that Jesus is the guy the Old Testament was talking about and how to reflect on it. Like that's like basic Bible methodology of saying like it's all in this. Excuse me. I had Chick-fil-A before we watched where we made this. Tim was there. The entire Bible is the Old Testament and the New Testament go together to show us that Jesus is the God from the Old Testament. And the big debate in church history was the difference between the New Testament or Gnosticism. And so they used the word apostolic. So it was like instead of New Testament, it was the word apostolic, and apostolic meant the writings of the apostles. So it's like, which is what the New Testament is. The New Testament is the words written down by the apostles. And but the Old Testament was still the Old Testament. It was still the Jewish scriptures. And it was like, but the difference was like, what dictates how we read the Old Testament? Is it going to be the apostles, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all the way through Revelation, the stuff that they wrote down? Is it their bodies of work, or is it the Gnostic bodies of work, which is all this other stuff? And Christians are apostolic, or Christians are New Testament Christians, because we believe the Old Testament is interpreted by the New Testament, by the writings of the apostles, as opposed to the Gnostics. And that is like basic Bible methodology, that we read the Old Testament like it's about Jesus as presented by the New Testament, as presented by the apostles. And that's what starts to give the Bible its own two legs, to the point where I really do believe this, if you start reading the Bible that way, when people try to do anything else, you're just like, why would you want to? Why would you want the Bible to be interpreted by some random laws in Rome? You know what I'm saying? Or why would you want it to be interpreted by some other ancient Near Eastern culture? You know what I'm saying? That they might have used the same word, but we're not talking about what we're talking about we're talking about the words, how they relate to Christ. Why would you want it to be anything other than Christ? And so when people start, stupid ads are bothering me. Also, I want my logo back. There we go. Oh, that's so much better. I should have just done that. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay. There. See, this is why we're practicing. That's practicing. Nice. So I don't have to minimize it every time. I can just have them all up, and I can still see me on the screen right here. This is perfect. What happens if I make this big? Oh, okay. If I put the arrow over here on the screen, I can swipe on those. If I put the arrow over here on my laptop, I can swipe on these. Shut up. Viewer, I know you can't believe this at home, but this graphic right here, I made it on my phone.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
You probably can't tell. It says my stupid computer's in the way. It says guest. I don't have a good spot for my computer. It's like blocking these stupid water bottles. Everybody knows when they come to my apartment, I give them water bottles. Like that's like the one thing that like I'm like slightly hospitable about. Tim didn't want one though because he brought his coffee.
Perfect.
Oh man, Tim's going on a run tonight. Tim, what time are you going on a run tonight?
10 p.m.
10 p.m. Because you're waiting on another guy named Tim to get off.
Yeah.
Get back from youth group.
Yes. I can think of no better thing to be doing in the middle of the night than doing anything besides sleeping.
I would just say no to people if they wanted me to go running with them at night. Actually, I say no to people when they want me to go running with them at normal hours.
Yeah. Honestly, right now with how hot it is, I probably say no to people asking me to go running at normal hours.
Yeah.
But the middle of the night when it's cooled down a little bit.
That's true.
Perfect.
That's probably good. Yeah. It was like a weird 80 degrees. Like I wore these pants all day today and felt really good. Like it was like a weird, but it was in the 80s. It was a weird 80s where it was like, it felt good. I don't know.
It's really the humidity that's been killer running.
Yeah.
Because
it's like sweat before you start sweating.
It's sweat before I start sweating. And I'll be like a mile into my run feeling great. And then I just look down at my shirt and I've sweat all the way through my shirt.
All the way through. Wow. What a man. What a man.
Perfect.
You just like, man, I look so hot right now.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's funny. That's really funny. That's pretty good. Yeah, I need to get back into. I've been saying I need to get back into running for years now. I think I really am almost there. I went on a couple of runs last year. I think I'm almost there.
Have you ever been much of a runner?
Yeah, in sports growing up, I was not a bad runner. In fact, right towards the end of middle school, I started, no pun intended, really hitting my stride.
Very nice.
Which is an analogy that comes from running. And so I started hitting my stride, and then played 1 year of lacrosse for no reason, and then quit. And also, I wore these Nike shoes that hurt my feet really bad. It hurt my hips.
Oh.
And I don't know why, but they hurt. And I would try, and they freaked out my running. And then it took me a little bit for them to like loosen up again. But but I physically remember these Nike running shoes from 9th grade. I'd be like, these hurt my hips so bad. And all day in school, all day in class, I was just thinking about these shoes hurting my hips. And then I think they're like basketball running shoes from like Ross. And then yeah. And then I just like Vans. I just want my skate. Like in high school, I just wanted to skate. Like after I played one season of lacrosse for like no reason. Like I had like one friend that was like grew up playing. He was already playing lacrosse, and we started at high school together. Coming from private school, he's like, play lacrosse with me, and I was like, yeah, try new things. And
nice.
I threw away basketball and soccer, but I think that's how the Lord actually like got me more to one. All I wanted to do was skate anyway. I just skateboarded all the time, and then that's how the Lord ended up getting me to like learn music, which is like obviously extremely important now.
Yeah.
Where like songwriting and stuff. Like I started leading worship for my youth group band and playing drums too. And I don't think I would have done that if I was still trying to do sports. And so I think the Lord in His providence kind of took me from that. However, as an adult, I would be a lot better off if I was still physically active. I feel like my brain space would be better, and my gut health would be better, and my overall muscle density would be better. And so I just really need to freaking do it. But
hey, if you want to join us at 10,
I know. How far are y'all running?
probably 2 or 3 miles.
See, that sounds insane to me right now. I think honestly though, there was like I was like there was a big point where I was like embarrassed about it. Like I was such a slob and so crap that like I was like I didn't want to start running because I didn't want people to be like, oh, go Nate, you know what I'm saying? Like you pull it out. Now I'm gonna be like, everybody shut up, you know what I'm saying? I think so I was like actually literally self-conscious, like I didn't want anybody to see me doing it. I think I'm growing out of that too, praise God. Where at some point I'm just like, you gotta just move on. You know what I'm saying? Like if you had a phase where you just fell out of it really hard, you gotta just you just gotta start and realize nobody freaking cares. You know what I'm saying? Nobody cares. And but I have a couple pairs of running shoes that feel good and yeah. I still, when I did go on a couple runs last year, I just like snapped straight back into form. I was like, wow, my form still is amazing. I was like, I can still do this, but I like would only, I didn't know how to pace myself or where. So I was like, I just took off like I was going to run like 3 miles at 17 years old. You know what I'm saying? Or like whatever. I just like, and then I was like, I can't. I was like, make it like halfway around like a tiny little loop at Joyner Park. And I was just like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And like drenched in sweat after like 3 minutes. I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. But
the hardest part about running is ambition. I realized that the furthest I think I've ever run in one run is 8 miles.
Yeah.
Or somewhere like that. And yet I still just have in my head like I could run a marathon tomorrow if I was motivated enough. And I have a friend who's trying to get a bunch of people to run a 60K in about a month here, which would be 37 and a little bit miles.
That sounds awful.
And
that's like farther than a marathon, isn't it?
It's like a marathon and a half.
Why would you want to do that?
Because people.
Who's organizing that?
That would be the wonderful Rick Fraley.
Okay.
I'm sure it makes so much sense now.
Yeah, I've only met him in passing, but yeah, he's actually yeah. Okay, well you have fun with that.
Yeah, so that's like my toxic trait is thinking I can just roll out of bed and be like, as long as I'm around people, then FOMO will carry me the last 30 miles beyond my PR.
The fear of missing out.
The fear of missing out has to count for at least 30 miles.
On a run, or you're just going to go straight to the end. What's going to happen? You're going to all be running. What's the fear? What do you think? What are you going to miss out on? Just having ran?
And conversation.
You talk while running?
I try to. I imagine that if I do this run, then I probably won't be talking as much as I would wish to be.
I feel like I'd get that stitch in my side again.
Because talking and breathing are
hand in hand
things that we need to do both of them. But if we're having a hard time doing one or the other, then it really becomes like a value judgment of which one's more important. And so I think breathing will probably take the cake.
The FOMO of being on a run and be like, I can't quit now. I might miss. That's still killing me. That makes sense.
What if mile 34 is the best one?
Yeah, what if there's an inside joke that I'm not included? What if I get back and they're all saying, not now, Blueberry? And I don't know.
That's too real.
What happened? What does not now, Blueberry mean? And they're all just, what if for months now, like we're trying to play board games or we're going out to eat and they're just like, haha, not now, Blueberry. And I wonder, because I tapped out of running before mile 34.
It's making me sad even thinking about it.
What does not now, Blueberry mean?
It's because when I dropped out of the run, my face was blue because I couldn't breathe.
Yeah, it's because someone kept a snack of blueberries in their pocket and it all spilled out. And then someone said, "Oh, not now, blueberries," like because they weren't gonna get to eat them now, and then everybody just says for the rest of their life, "Not now, blueberry," and you have to be like, I wasn't there.
So, fun fact: this is actually the exact conversation that led to the creation of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Because not now, blueberry, and good old Violet something or other with her blueberry chocolate.
Right. She turns into a blueberry.
She turned into a blueberry.
What did she do again?
ate an experimental chocolate, I think.
Yeah.
Violet something or other.
All the Willy Wonka deaths. Let's see. We had no children actually died. Shut up. AI overview. However, the ambiguous fates of misbehaving kids and angels that kids in the original I-71 have feel affairs. Okay. Augustus Gloop, original fate. He falls in the chocolate river, gets sucked into a pipe, and is presumably rescued later from. When is he presumably rescued? The dark fan theory. He is killed and made into chocolate. That's not a fan theory. Violet Beauregard. Is that the one you were talking about?
I think so, yeah.
Original fate. She chews an experimental 3-course meal gum, turns into a massive blueberry, and is rolled away into the juicing room. Wonka notes her juicing process successful, though she remains purple.
I'm pretty sure that part is canonical.
That one, yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Veruca Salts. She is deemed a bad egg by the sorting geese. Falls down the garbage chute.
You have been deemed a bad egg by the sorting geese.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Oh, thank
And
you.
lands in the furnace, which Wonka claims is only lit every other day. Fan theory, she dies from the fall or fire. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Mike TV, he is shrunken down in the Wonka vision room and is eventually stretched back out to his normal height, but the taffy puller, leaving him unusually tall and thin. Oh, by the taffy puller, leaving him tall and thin. He is killed or permanently destroyed by the television transmission. Oh, that's funny. I think, yeah. No, that's, she turns a giant blueberry. I was gonna say, I think what would be worse than being left out by an inside joke would actually be that part of the story when someone has to say, Tim, were you there? You'd have to be like, I was for part of it, but I left before that joke. Like, you'd have to say that for the rest of your life. So I technically wasn't there. Like, that having to be canon, as much canon, like part of the story is that, and then Tim missed it because he was, I think that'd be worse than just not even being there for the, so actually you're right. Okay, tonight when we run, we will make sure that we come up with an inside joke. That
I'll make sure I drop all the blueberries.
All the blueberries. Oh, that's good. Yeah, me and Trey Donaldson had a really stupid one that was just like it was Space Boy. Sometimes some inside jokes that I've been a part of have come from just like sheer absurdism. Like no event happens. It's just like we're talking in jokes and someone says something in this absurd realm. And it's so funny in that moment that we just say that line, but it's not actually connected to anything. It's connected to a moment where we were all sitting in my living room just yapping.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not, it's not real. It's not an actual current event. And those are actually my favorite because I love absurdism. I love just talking and coming up with really stupid scenarios.
For me, it's when the accents come out. And when accents are contagious, that's just peak yapping.
I'm not good at accents. I love dialogue, but I'm not good at accents. I find, because I used to try to do drama, and I found that like I'm best at drama when I just deliver the line like Nate. Like I just play the character, but I just talk like me, than to try to like put on like airs or like put on like, I don't think I use that expression right, but try to put on like an accent or whatever. What were you gonna say?
I feel like there are some accents that it doesn't matter if they're good or bad. They just carry the intent of the joke. Yeah. No matter how good or no matter how bad.
Honestly, the intent of the joke, that needs to be a stronger concept. People need to understand that in comedy a lot more, the intent of a joke. Because I love to impersonate people. Like there's a lot of people like when I'm telling a story, like if you put a gun to my head and said impersonate a person you know really well, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But if I'm telling a story and I'm like, and then this guy says, I can turn into that person. You know what I'm saying? Like I can I can be like I can absolutely nail it if I'm telling in a story. But if it's just like play this character, like be this person right now, I'm like I can't do it. Yeah. I don't know I'd never developed that acting brain. But it's been fun. It's fun to impersonate people because I get impersonated all the time because I have a very distinct voice, especially more like I'm still in a character, but I was much more of a character in college and in high school, and I would get people would impersonate me all the time. And one of my favorite stories, this might be weird, but like one of my favorite stories was I worked at a youth group in college, and I was at we had a church party. There's a party for our youth group at someone's house, and the girls came up and said, Nate, some of the girls in the youth group came up and said, Nate, we had a sleepover last night, and one of the games we ended up playing was we all took turns trying to impersonate your laugh. And then we all started coaching each other. We're like, okay, now convulse. Yes, convulse. Now punch your leg. Yes, perfect. That is exactly how Nate. We all took turns trying to do it. And I thought it was so fun. It was so funny. And so anytime someone gets offended from being impersonated, I'm like, stop. Like, it's funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all, like, I just am so used to getting impersonated. Maybe I should be more offended. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, but yeah. I was just like, I've always just thought it was funny. But, like, then some people get impersonated and they're like, well, that was the rudest thing I ever saw in my life. And then I'm like, well, that was the rudest thing I ever saw. No, I'm just kidding. But I think impersonations are really funny if I'm telling a story. But, like Morgan, like there was a time where people, like, I really had a really good Morgan because I would say tomorrow. Like I can't do it right, but Morgan has a very distinct way of saying tomorrow, and so I'd be like tomorrow, and it really slayed for a little bit.
It's always funny, also when like those accents or those mannerisms start getting picked, like the natural ones, not like the ones that people have when they're joking. Yeah, when they start getting like picked up by other people.
Oh yeah, when you rub off on your friends, yeah. Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's great. I think it's super fun. Yeah, when people,
And there are a few of those, especially when I was in college. A few just super distinctive ones because my friend group when I was in college were from all different parts of the U.S. And so had different accents, but also had different sayings. And so even now, every once in a while, I catch myself with just a saying that I know came straight from one of my buddies who's from a tiny little town in Texas. And I would have, being from Colorado, I would have no reason to ever explain things the way I would be explaining them. And yet I say these things and now everybody just looks at me like, what are you talking about? Because it's just like deep in the heart of Texas. And yet it just appears from this guy from Colorado who lives in North Carolina.
That's right. No, in college, I mean, we were full of bits in my college dorm and in my house. And we had this, if you grew up in Metro Atlanta, you remember especially in the 2000s, 2010s, I don't know if it's still on there, but Shane Company, the jewelry store, had an iconic radio ad that said, now you've got a friend in the diamond business in Gwinnett, Shane Company in Gwinnett, Alpharetta, and Kennesaw. And we lived at Kennesaw State University, obviously. And it was just the way he said it kind of had like this really definitive deep voice, in Kennesaw. Well, then we took it and then we would start being like, one of my roommates started going, in Kennesaw. But then like it became something that we would do in the middle of a sentence. Like if Kennesaw came up like in normal talk. So it started out mocking, it started out like trying to match that ad, and then turned into kind of this more announcer voice. And then it turned into this thing where anytime we'd be like, I gotta go to Powder Springs to pick something up, and then I'll be back in Kennesaw by like 5:00 and we can watch the movie then. It would just be like warped into like the phrasing of it, to where I did it the other day. And like nobody that's outside would even know the Shane Company ad, you know what I'm saying? Nor does a lot of people up here even know that Kennesaw, Georgia exists. And I was just like, in Kennesaw. And I was like, that's just, or like when we all split up like and went to different places, like someone would just throw a group chat, a voice memo of someone going, in Kennesaw. And then we'd all like respond with our own like voice memos of being like, in Kennesaw. It was just super silly. And, which is really important. But,
we had one of those when I was at OBU. We had a big, long fight song chant of a bunch of words that sound like nonsense, but it ends with saying, zip, bang, OBU.
Praise God.
But some of my friends started taking, just whenever we would see something that's just so distinctly redneck Oklahoma, we would just look at one another and just say, zip, bang, and then we'd give a little tap on the hat and a flick on the cap. And just anytime we saw somebody like riding around on a lawnmower with no shirt on. Just, hey, zip bang. And now I still say that sometimes, and people just look at me so confused, like, what are you talking about? Because I always do the motion too.
Yeah.
I just like see somebody doing some hilarious stuff outside of Dollar General. Hey, zip bang, brother.
That is what I think I remember about noticing is I think you did have like some mannerisms or some things that I was like, what is that guy talking about? Like, what is that guy? And it's probably these college inside jokes. Where I was just like, you just be like, but like you always just carry yourself so confidently that it's like it's almost like a, why don't you know what I'm talking about? It was so like, you know, like pardon me.
The key is that if I don't know what I'm talking about, then nobody knows what I'm talking about.
Nobody.
But we're all on the same page.
That's funny. That's funny. I'm gonna pull this up, make sure that we're actually like live right now, because that would be. Where are we? Where is? Okay, good. We are live right now, so this will come up. Okay, that's all I wanted to make sure, because I was like, man, what if we weren't live this entire time, and then that would just suck. But I can't, because I'm not good at technology, and I say this in the last video. It's like I suck at technology. And we're obviously just yapping, but I'm also like, oh freak, I'm supposed to be practicing this right now. I'm supposed to be like making sure all this is like in order, but it is, so we can just like talk. But like I'm like cursed with looking like a guy that would be good at technology, but like I look creative, and I am creative in certain things, but technology is not one of them. But I look like I'd be like an artsy fartsy creator or like a nerd tech guy, but I'm not. I've taken several higher level audio production courses for soundboards and microphones and tech and all that stuff. And my brain dumps it 2 weeks after the course ends.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, that's why just learning how to use this was a real champion for me. Like, and just learning that literally it's as easy as just plugging it into my computer. Like right when you plug it in, the computer finds it and the program finds it and is like, it kind of just does it for you. And I was like, shut up. I was like, this, because like this just looks complicated. You know, it's just like someone that doesn't know anything about cables or equipment, this just looks hard. Yeah. But someone that knows about it looks at it and goes, this is actually, you're only running like 3 things. You're running 2 mics and an interface. Yeah. Big whoop. And I'm like, huge whoop. Huge freaking whoop. I'm not. Anyway, at the end of college, or at the end of the dorm era, we made. I don't know if my roommates would want me to talk about this, but they're not going to watch this. We made a time capsule out of a out of a protein shake container, like a massive weight gain, like mass gainer protein shake. We just put a ton of stuff in it, went out at 3 a.m. and buried it in campus property. You know what I'm saying? Like made like the most probably illegal digging hole anything. and dug it up, and we're gonna dig it up on 10 years later, which I think is this one. I'm 32, so yeah, it should be this summer. We're supposed to dig it up. I don't know if I'll be able to go because it's like right before I go back. I go to camp with my students, and so I don't think I'll be able to go down. So they might do it, which is fine. But the plan was to wear like landscaper attire, and just be like, we work for the school, and or we were brought in for a job and dig it up. But I'm probably incriminating myself right now by saying this. They've got to sift through, what are we at, over an hour at this point? Yeah. If someone sifts through this and finds that confession, that'd be impressive.
Yeah. There's also just always the option of just use the cover of night. Just go dig it up.
Right. But it's right next to the front door of our dorm. So it's like, there's people that live there. And so we'd have to be 4 guys digging at night right outside someone's window.
Yeah.
And so odds are they would be like, hey, cops, there's...
Or they'd be curious. and they'd want to see what was inside the time
Yeah,
capsule.
I was say, they weirdly nail it. They're like, "Are you guys digging up a time capsule?" And we're like, "Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
And they're like, "Huh, college," and they just go back inside. Oh man, yeah, or they don't want to see it. Yeah, I remember we wrote some letters. We had some letters to people, and we wrote letters to ourselves saying to look stuff up. We took, this will be really intense if somebody makes it this far into the podcast. We put on it letters to ourselves. We said, go look up this person, find this person, ask how they're doing, blah blah blah, whatever, and memories and little artifacts from around our dorm. We had we had just like stuff that we had taped to the wall and whatnot. It was silly. And then we put a flash drive in there, and on that flash drive it had the 4 original shots of these giant headshots. We printed out giant movie theater size headshots of everybody in the dorm. And then one of the guys had moved out there, but we put the original headshots on that flash drive and a group photo of our naked butts.
Very nice. Very nice.
So that if anybody finds that flash drive and pulls it up, they were like, "What the heck is this flash drive?" And one, everybody knows, like any real tech person knows not to put a random flash drive in your computer.
Yeah.
So we would know that it's fine, but
yeah,
to put it in there and it'd find those files and a photo of.
Reminds me of one semi-similar story. So I went to college during COVID time.
Oh, really?
And so that was my freshman year when I was living in the dorms. And that meant we had quarantine procedures, both if anybody ever had COVID, but also if anyone was a close contact of someone with COVID. And so there were times when good chunks of my hall would have to go in quarantine in different places for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Which meant that some would be there and some wouldn't.
Yeah.
Including one situation where someone's roommate was still in his room, but this guy had to go in quarantine. And so we decided to make this guy who got quarantined a welcome back gift. And so we took a photograph of ourselves dressed up just as like a Calvin Klein photo shoot type thing.
Oh, praise God.
And printed out probably over 300 copies.
So are y'all in your underwear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And printed 300 copies. 300. And every surface of the room was just completely covered with these. Every surface of his side of the room was completely covered with these photos.
Not our side. Why would we want photos of ourselves in our underwear? Yeah.
Yeah. But somehow we got his roommate to let us in to do this because it obviously wouldn't disturb him to have half of his room covered up with these photos. But I bet there's still a few of those floating around.
Yeah, they're
floating around the old dorm.
That's right. And if you ever try to run for office, it will ruin you.
I mean, that's why I was smarter than you, and that's why I at least had my underwear on.
That's right. Well, I see. Yeah. Well, we were it's all our backs. It's just our back. Yeah. It's just our backs that are just pulled down. But you're right. But also, if someone got that photo, unless one of my roommates saved it to a file, which would not surprise me if they saved it. I feel like we deleted it, but if one of them saved it without telling me, which would not actually shock me. But if not, then if someone did possess that photo, they would have to be insane, to have gotten it off that time capsule.
Yeah.
So it should only exist 4 feet under the soil at Kennesaw State, and we've been back there. They've changed landscape. There's different bushes, different mulch, different everything. So I'm like, okay, they've obviously dug, here. So we're not even sure if it's there.
Yeah.
Oh man. That's. Freaking college, man. Freaking college. Yeah, I was here during COVID, and then I went down. I just moved in with Nick here in this dorm for in October. So not even a whole semester. Middle of October, November, December. And then I went back down to Georgia probably halfway through February. I can't remember when, but like my granddad died, and so I had to go down to Florida. I had to go down to Georgia at some point, and I was trapped down there, and they shut down all the schools. So I stayed in Georgia for a good chunk of COVID, all the way through May. And yeah, what a time! What a time! All right,
wild to think about.
wild to think about, man. You know, there's a new virus everyone's scared about called the hantavirus.
Yeah.
Yeah, from that cruise ship.
But I think that what I've heard is it's less contagious, but a lot more deadly.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's all mixed. Like some people are way more scared about it, and some people are not as free. I don't know. I'm too tired.
I don't know these things.
Yeah. All right, dude. Thanks for coming on my podcast, man. I appreciate it. Anything you want to promote to the viewers?
No.
No.
I'm not a sellout. Sorry.
Not a sellout. We just do this for the actual. We just do this for the yapping. We're not here to sell nothing. We're not here to promote nothing. We're just here.
Just here for the love of the game.
Just for the love of the friggin' game, baby. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna hit stop. We're gonna see what happens.